It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If you're a die-hard hockey fan who likes to follow the future of the NHL before they blossom into stars, then do we have a show for you. Check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL Draft, with your host Hattie Kalakash, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab. That is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, joined as always by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steel Roden. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. There is a lot to get to on today's episode. We have a lot of major fantasy pieces returning from injury, some heading to the IR, and that means major implications for your fantasy squad. Of course, big-time bets. Let's get right to it. Happy Friday, everybody.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music, and you know what time it is. It's time for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Friday edition. A spicy edition filled with all of the fantasy implications that you need to know for your team. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are free and available across all platforms you find your favorite and hottest content. That includes YouTube. We are here to hold your hand through the next couple of days, Steel. There's a lot going on with these players returning from injury. We got Max Pacioretty. We have a big-time injury to Jake DeBrusk. Jack Eichel returns from injury. We got the Washington Capitals getting healthy. This is implications abound for your fantasy team. And I'm not even talking about the Winnipeg Jets yet, and we're going to get there as well. Of course, we're getting to big-time bets, but honestly, Steele, taking a look into the research today and seeing what this is going to do, these returns from injuries, and honestly, I don't know where you want to take it anywhere you want because it all kind of falls into the same playing area here. Top six forwards returning from injury, major impacts, one top six forward going on the IR. There's some shuffling of lines. There's some opportunities for some players like even Taylor Hall to get some increased looks. Let's talk all about it. I don't know where you want to go, but I'm fine anywhere you want to take us, my friend.
Well, I think that's where we should start with the Boston Bruins and Jake DeBrusk, the one player that's on our list that is heading to the IR, out 4 weeks with a hand and lower body injury. So he's struggling with two different injuries at the same time. But what a season DeBrusk has had so far. I a little bit of a side note, I dodged a bullet. I was trying to trade for DeBrusk a couple of weeks ago. Definitely dodged a bullet there. But what a season he's had so far. 16 goals, 30 points in 36 games, playing on that top line with Pastrnak and Bergeron or Marchand whenever they switch up the lines. But, he's such an important player to this Bruins. He's become a very important player to this Bruins organization. Other than the fact of that one down year where he had 14 points in 41 games, which is obviously not good, he's been a relatively consistent player, upwards of, minimum 40 points, anywhere between 40 and 50 points. So he's a very important player for the Boston Bruins, and I don't think a lot of people put a lot of respect on his name because he's not one of the big names the Bruins have in their roster right now. But, I know you and I were talking about the Bruins. We're looking forward for the Bruins to lose a couple of games in the near future. Obviously, you and I don't want a player to go down to injury.
No,
we don't want that to be the reason to affect the team. But I don't know if this actually does affect the Bruins that much. Their team is just so good right now. And obviously it's a big loss to fantasy owners out there. But for the Bruins themselves, they're just rolling right now. They might lose a couple of games, but they're just such a good team. And I think they can, be pretty well off without DeBrusk for the next 4 weeks.
Really good point. That's just how good these Bruins have been, much to both of our chagrin. You mentioned them being at the top of the NHL for goals for and goals against. That's a rare feat, especially this late in the season. This team just continues to do impressive stuff. And really, I think the takeaway here is, maybe not the overall effect on the quality of this Boston Bruins team. It's on the fantasy pieces in that top six, because even a guy like David Krejci, who was having a good season coming back to the NHL, feeding that biscuit to Pastrnak, Now maybe Krejci owners take a hit, or maybe if Krejci was a peripheral guy on your team and he's not going to get that same dynamic look, whereas maybe Taylor Hall, now if you are a Taylor Hall owner, maybe you enjoy this bump a little bit in his playing time in the top 6. Also, I believe I read today, where did I read it? I think he's now, he's joining that top power play unit, Taylor Hall, filling in. DeBrusk is a valuable piece. And yes, that's confirmed. Hall has been getting rushes on that top power play unit, replacing Jake DeBrusk. If you can, go out there and take a little mini risk on Taylor Hall over the next couple of days, just while you see what happens, what develops with this Boston Bruins situation, Steele. And that's a nice little interlude because, look, you mentioned it. This might not really do too much to this Boston Bruins overall success. That's how good they've been. But the scenario unfolding with these other teams, Jets, Caps, and Canes, maybe let's go to the Carolina Hurricanes next. Again, I don't know. There's just so many interesting spots to go to right now. Max Pacioretty comes back way ahead of schedule. I'd say at least a month we expected him to be out. Another month. That Achilles injury, I think it was an Achilles. I keep getting confused with all of these injuries. Thank you, Steele. This means big-time things for the pieces in the top 6 for the Carolina Hurricanes. Look, Seth Jarvis is, as much as I like to tout Seth Jarvis, he might be the guy on the outside looking in that top 6 now, but this means things for the Carolina Hurricanes. I peg Sebastion Aho as a big-time second-half breakout, and I think if Pacioretty gets thrown with Svechnikov and Aho, man, that line is going to go off.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see Max Pacioretty back in action, playing in the NHL again. This is his 3rd team throughout his NHL career, obviously with the Montreal Canadiens, Vegas Golden Knights, and now Carolina Hurricanes. But I'm very excited for Max Pacioretty. And I think, again, Seth Jarvis probably will be that guy that gets shuffled down a little bit down the lineup and playing less minutes to make room for Pacioretty, rightfully so, because
very quickly, just to interject, or he gets thrown out there with Martin Nicklas as well.
That's definitely a possibility.
There's a lot in the mix here, so I'm just excited for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Same. And, I've been doing a lot of research on this Carolina Hurricanes team now and for the future as well. I'm looking at the salary cap for the Carolina Hurricanes. They have put themselves in such a great position for the future. It's actually unbelievable. Again, looking at the future, it's clear that either Anderson or Antti Raanta will not be back with the organization next year. Both are UFAs, I believe. Pacioretty and Stahl are UFAs as of next year as well. Pacioretty making $7 million, Jordan Stahl making $6 million. I don't think either of those guys would mind signing a little bit less money to remain with the Carolina Hurricanes.
In the threat for a cup.
Exactly. Jordan Stahl would definitely take a
good point,
lesser term deal or a lesser money term deal under $5.5 million because he's making $6 million right now. But he's a crucial part of that organization. I think the worst contract for the Hurricanes is Kotkaniemi at $4.82 million. All the way till 2029. But getting back to Max Pacioretty, he was on a pace, I believe, for a career year last year. He had 36 points in 39 games, something along those lines. He's 34 years old, but he's still not afraid to put his body on the line, block shots. He hits. He puts a ton of pucks on net. 60 points is in his wheelhouse. Maybe not this year, but if he plays a full season next year, 60 points is definitely in his wheelhouse for the future. And I really like the look of this Hurricanes team. It's going to be a very, very deadly team.
This is just the kind of addition where Patches has got it done in his career. He's not worried about stepping in and the pressure being on him or anything like that. And this is just really an intriguing situation that you have to keep your eyes on because he's also owned. I think when I checked, he's out there in a lot of ESPN leagues. I don't know the percentages, but it was like almost 50% in a lot of leagues still. Patches is out there. Go take a risk because whether he slots in with Teravainen and Aho or whether it's Svechnikov and Nicklas, now I finally have those line combos right. I can feel the Carolina Hurricanes.
I'll tell you right now, Pacioretty is owned at 23% right now on ESPN. He is definitely out there in most leagues.
That doesn't make sense to me, people. I went off the other day on Hampus Lindholm. Appreciate the feedback from y'all Boston fans in the comments. I'm going to go off against on Patches as well. This is just a sneaky little ad steal on such a good team. He's coming back to such a good situation. Speaking of which, we're going to get to the Jets. We're going to get to the Caps. They have a bunch of players returning from injury, and we're going to get to big-time bets for Friday's 6-game board. But I got to talk about my favorite treat after the holidays. It's Built Bar. You don't want all the fat and the calories, and you got to try Built Bar. You know, after the holiday season is over, everyone's goal is to be a little healthier and eat a little better this season. Now, just like Steele and I, whether you want to go to the gym or not, you got to try Built because healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, it's delicious. It's good for you. Perfect for a resolution, goal, or whatever you want to call it. They're covered in Steele's favorite, 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. Do I need to say more? I'll hit you with a couple more delicious facts. How about they're only 130 calories per bar, 4 grams of sugar, and a delicious whopping 17 grams of protein. Good for before or after the gym. And now you don't even need to go to Built.com to get your Built Bars. You can go to Walmart or your local Sam's Club and pick one up right off the shelf. That's right. Head to the nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of delicious Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puff, whatever you want. Run to Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever you have you, or you can still go to Built.com to get the delicious latest flavors from Built.
If you're a die-hard hockey fan who likes to follow the future of the NHL before they blossom into stars, then do we have a show for you. Check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL Draft, with your host, Hattie Kalakash, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your next listen, though, please go check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading all the way up to the NHL Draft this summer, plus NHL Draft ranking and top prospect comparisons for your favorite NHL team. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And I'm definitely going to need to hit up the closest Walmart to myself and grab myself some Built Bars. Absolutely delicious out there. Flip, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off with the Washington Capitals because that is some major news for that club right now.
Yes, it is.
Tom Wilson and Nicklas Backstrom. Who would have thought Nicklas Backstrom would be even making a return this season, let alone playing hockey again? I thought he was actually going to retire because that's a very difficult injury to come back from. Hip surgery in the offseason. It didn't look like he was going to be. It looked like he was out for the entire season, maybe even potentially hindering his NHL career. But what a turn of events for the Washington Capitals. Tom Wilson and Nicklas Backstrom very close to returning into the lineup. And this is just huge news for the Washington Capitals.
Huge news, and this is a team, Steele, that you and I have been very hard on, and I was projecting after that John Carlson injury, after all the injuries that had piled up, that this team was going to slide. Look, this is the Ovechkin magic. This is permeating through the rest of the team, his confidence, and he wants that goal record real bad, and you can see it in his face, and you can see it by the play of the rest of his teammates. By the way, I don't know if you saw the picture of this GOAT, Alexander Ovechkin, posing with the Montreal Canadiens moms. So the Habs, you know, they do the mom and dad trips. They had all the moms in the building for the Habs game. He lays an absolute beat down on their boys, and he takes a photo with them after he posts a Hattie. Just an absolute legend. Sidebar completely. But them getting Tom Wilson and Backstrom back, not only is this huge for Ovechkin and the goal record, this is just huge for this team overall because if Carlson can get healthy, you and I have been off the mark with this Washington Capitals team. And I'll say this again about the line combinations, the options, the fantasy impact. Now you have probably those two players slotting back in with Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, and likely Oshie in the top 6. So Connor Sheary or Dylan Strome are likely on the outside looking in, one of those players, but one of them is going to remain in the top 6. So keep your eyes peeled on this Washington Capitals situation, Steele. And I don't know about you, but you can't help but feel they want to give Dylan Strome that run out. He can play the wing as well. Let's see what happens. What do you think about that? Because I'd be leaning keeping Strome over Sheary.
Yeah, I would definitely be keeping Strome over Sheary. Has been very underrated this season. I believe he has 22 points
He's
up to
been
this
pretty
point
good
on the season. Very good, but obviously if you're getting Tom Wilson and Nicklas Backstrom back, you're going to have to shuffle the lineups with some of those bottom six forwards who made their way up to the top six. But like you said, this is absolutely incredible what Washington's been able to do. The fact that they're in a wild card spot right now, playing without Backstrom, Wilson, Brown, Hagelin, and now John Carlson is outstanding. The fact that they're in
and Charlie Lindgren, the backup, has had to be in there.
He has been incredible in the absence of Darcy Kemper when he was injured. But again, I am really I'm just mind boggled that Backstrom's able to jump back into this Washington Capitals group.
I agree.
After hip surgery, that's a serious injury to go through. And to me, he was one of my favorite players growing up watching. I loved watching him. I actually thought, this is just me, but he's one of the best passers I've ever seen in my life. I'm only 23 years old, so I haven't been around for a long time, but I love the way he passes the puck. Nothing is, everything, he makes everything seem so simple. Nothing's too fancy for him.
Seamless.
It's seamless. Threading the needle, getting the job done, helping Ovechkin a lot throughout his year, get to this, trying to break Gretzky's record right now, hopefully soon. And
it helps when you're feeding the puck to that guy a little bit.
Exactly. And I know Ovechkin really wants his best teammate back as well. So this is going to be awesome to see Backstrom back in the Capitals jersey, as well as Tom Wilson. To me, as well with Backstrom, Tom Wilson is just one of those guys who always seems to get away from me in the fantasy draft. Right when I'm about to snag him up, somebody takes him away a couple picks away from me, or a couple picks before me. And Wilson's just one of those guys that he does a lot of everything. He's a consistent, he's a very consistent, 40 to 55 point person now. He's definitely developed his game over the last few years. Obviously the hits and penalty minutes, if you're in a banger league, are huge. But again, now that he's adding that top point production as well in the top six group, he's become a lethal fantasy owner when he is healthy. So very happy to see Backstrom and Wilson back in the lineup very soon.
There is a lot of really good teams at the top of that Eastern Conference, and there's going to be a lot of teams on the outside looking in just by sheer numbers, Steele. And, you made a bunch of really good points there with Backstrom. Let's see what Ovechkin can do with his wheelman back beside him, his wingman. That's really one of those things to keep an eye on, aside from who else is going to get a shot in that top six. Before we get to big-time bets to close the show, though, speaking of a resurgence into your top six, Nikolaj Ehlers and Blake Wheeler and Cole Perfetti, who's missed the last few games, are all going to be back in the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets as of tonight. I'm going to mention that when it comes to my bets in a few minutes, but this Winnipeg Jets team has already impressed so far this season, Steele. And now they're going to be fully healthy for the, whatever offense is going to be fully healthy for the first time this season. And I think you should really see what the quality of this Winnipeg Jets team is. Someone tells me they're going to start popping off and scoring goals. So keep an eye on what's going on in Winnipeg, just from an offensive standpoint, if nothing else.
Look, I have been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Nikolaj Ehlers has been on the IR since the beginning of the season for me. I've been waiting for this moment. It's almost enough to make a grown man cry. I'm on the edge of tears right now. But look, this man's is about to go pop off in the second half of the season. 40 points in 42 games. Maybe a little bit of an exaggeration there. But I love Ehlers. He does a ton of everything. Goal scoring, passing ability, a ton of shots on net. I really like that he's back in the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets, as well as their former captain, still leader on the team, Blake Wheeler, back in action. He's 36 years old now. He's been out for the last 3-4 weeks, I believe it is. But again, another guy that's very crucial to this organization. Just 4 years ago, I didn't know this, but just 4 years ago, he put up 91 consecutive back-to-back points, which is incredible. Obviously, being at 36 years old now, it's kind of dropped off a little bit, but he's still putting up 50, 60 points a season, which is great. The peripheral stats have kind of fallen off a little bit, but he's still a great fantasy piece for any team. So a lot of guys coming back into the lineup.
This might be a bit of a bold take and not a very popular one. In my opinion, looking at that top six in Winnipeg, when they are firing on all cylinders and healthy, I know it's like caveat left and right here, They're one of the most underrated top 6 forward groups in the NHL, in my opinion, offensively. Say what you will about their two-way game.
I don't even think that's bold whatsoever, especially now that Pierre-Luc Dubois has been so good.
There's a lot of talent here with this Winnipeg Jets top 6. Now they're getting some Morrissey love on the blue line, even though I think that's going to regress. If you want to hear the regression targets for the second half or players you want to fade, that was yesterday's episode. But yeah, Steele, a lot to love what's going on in Winnipeg. And now let's see what they can do at full health. Kind of the same thing with these Winnipeg Jets and the same thing with these Carolina Hurricanes. Now let's see what these teams can do now that they have all their pieces back. Keep your eye on all of those fantasy situations because just the peripheral pieces are starting to get a lot more value. Big time bets on the way.
Well, now I'm very excited because you kind of alluded to that Jets.
That's what I do, Steele.
Bets there. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Please make sure you go hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. And like Flip said, make sure you're not afraid to go leave a comment on our YouTube channel. If you disagree or agree with any of our hot opinions over here, DM us on Twitter at LO_fantasy NHL as well. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for all the support. Thank you so much. Let's get to big time bets, though. I'll throw it over to you because I'm really interested to see what you have to say about these Winnipeg Jets.
Gone back and forth on these picks, Steele. I'm on road. It's another hotel recording special, making sure all of our fans get that content Monday to Friday. I'm going to save my Jets pick because I'm going to just explain it in a minute. Let me just leave it at that. Nashville at Washington. We talked a lot about this Nashville team coming on hard, strong in the second half. I went back and forth because, this is a big-time influx of not just players and talent on this Washington team. Even if they're not back Friday, it looks like it might be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, one of these next coming days. This team is going to be fired up. So I wanted to just go with Washington, but Nashville is that second-half team. So I looked into the numbers a little bit. This feels like a high-scoring game, Steele. Looking at the recent numbers, Nashville's last 3 games, 6-1, 5-4, and 6-3. Washington's last 3 games, 4-3, 9-2, and 5-4. All of these games have gone over the number for both of these teams. That's where the trend is going. Trends are your friends. I'm not overthinking this one. This could easily be 4-3. I know I've been saying that. 4-3 is my number these days, people, because that squeaks over our
lucky total. Number 7.
Thank you so much. So that first pick, Steele, Nashville at Washington. I think they're going to be jazzed up at Washington at home. I wanted to take them on the money line, but let me cop out a little bit and better odds. Give me the over 6.5 for that Nashville-Washington game.
I like the over in that game as well. Like I said, I think that Nashville Predators, you said this as well many, many times. Predators are a second half season team. But I even said so myself that they're going to start scoring a lot more goals than we saw in the first half. So I like that pick a lot. My first 2 picks come from the same game, actually. But one of them is my lock of the night. So I'll start off with this other pick, actually. Arizona Coyotes on the money line against the Chicago Blackhawks. This is probably the perfect time to pick them. Blackhawks are depleted. I believe Kane is now day-to-day with an injury as well. So that's another top-tier player for them. He's been battling. So I'm going to go with the Coyotes on the money line. And Flip, actually, if you don't mind, I'll just ream off the other 2 picks as well.
Go off.
Second pick of the night, Matthew Tkachuk anytime goal. I've done it the last few games. It's hit for me the last few games as well. He's got 6 goals in his last 4 games. He's firing on all cylinders. He is the offense juggernaut of this Florida Panthers team, trying to get it all done by himself. Hopefully get some help from Ekblad and Barkov and Verhaeghe like we talked about a couple days ago. But Tkachuk, anytime goal is my second pick. And my lock of the night, I'm taking the Panthers on the money line, -139 against these Detroit Red Wings. We know that the Panthers are a much better team than what they've shown us this year. They have the talent. They're not performing up to that expectation that everyone thought they would. They're going to need to be a lot better, and I think it starts against this Red Wings team.
Very quickly, I love that pick, but your pick with the Arizona Coyotes is slightly concerning because I think Connor Ingram might be in the cage on a back-to-back. That's a little bit, for me, a little bit dicey because I do like Vejmelka. He's a solid pick, but my second pick, you're going to like it. Panthers on the money line. This just feels like a good spot for the Florida Panthers. And when I take a look into the recent head-to-heads against the Detroit Red Wings, about 9 out of the last 10 wins have gone the Florida Panthers' way, this head-to-head matchup. I love me some head-to-head matchups. I think this Florida Panthers team has underachieved. And honestly, Forsling, Montour, Ekblad, I think defensively they can be a lot better. And I know they've put up fantasy-wise, but I think those three D-men are good enough with the goaltenders they have and the top six they have to make some noise. And they just haven't done it yet. So let's keep our eye on that situation. You know, I love saying that, Steele. But Panthers money line, that's my second pick. And to arrive at my lock of the night, the Tampa Bay Lightning got walloped the other night by the Minnesota Wild.
Yes, they did,
I'm sure
baby.
You like that. And Tampa has been very back and forth this season. Streaky. Good, not so good, really good, and really bad. And I'm going to ride what I've seen over that last couple of games. They don't look super confident in their two-way game. The Jets are getting all three of those studs back. All three players play on their top power play unit. This Jets team is going to be jazzed up to be complete in their offensive forward group. This just feels like the right spot. And oh, wait, the Jets are one of the best home teams in the league this year. 14-6. Jets on the money line. That's my lock of the night, and I'm feeling confident in that pick, Steele.
I like your pick right there with the Jets on the money line. I do, however, have to say that Ryan Elliott did play a back-to-back scenario against the Chicago Blackhawks and Minnesota Wild because Vasilevsky was out with an illness. So that's why the Minnesota Wild had a little bit of a beatdown against those Lightning. Nonetheless,
I take back everything I say about the Panthers.
Nonetheless, the Jets at home on the money line. I like the pick. They're getting a ton of resurgence back into the lineup. I'm really excited for Nikolaj Ehlers. Hopefully, he can get my fantasy team going a little bit more. Maybe a little
sprinkle on the Ehlers prop might be juicy.
Might have to be a little prop on Nikolaj Ehlers for sure Friday night. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Again, for your next listen, though, go check out Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading all the way up to the NHL draft this summer, plus NHL draft rankings and top prospect comparisons for your favorite hockey teams. Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow button, give us some love out there. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great weekend for that matter. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.
This is Locked On NHL Prospects, a podcast brought to you 5 days a week where I break down all the latest happenings in the scouting world. I'm Hadi Kalikesh. I'm a scout and prospect analyst across multiple platforms. And if you want to know what makes Connor Bedard so special, if you want to know who your team should pick at the 2023 NHL Draft, or if you just want to know what's happening at the World Juniors, look no further. I've got you covered. You can find us on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, so give us a follow and we'll make sure you're the most informed person at your water cooler when it comes to NHL prospects. Brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.